Good day children, welcome again to the English class. And today from the Flamingo, we'll do the lesson, the Rat Trap. And this is written by Selma Legaloff. And here we have got at present the part that we are reading. In this part we have got the red trap seller, the old man who was crofter in Ramshaw's ironworks, and he stole 10 runners from his house. So, you know what is a peddler? This rat trap seller, he was a peddler. Peddler means the person who sells things. He goes to from house to house and sell things. Whom we call fairy wala. That you know that your parents, especially your mother, she buys things from the people who sell things. They bring in front of their house and they sell the things. So instead of going to the market, your parents, your mother or your aunt, generally the women folk, they love to buy the things from the nearby only. They don't want to go to the market to buy the things. So this fellow, rat trap seller, rat trap, you know what is a rat trap? The trap by which we catch the rats. So here it is a rat and trap. So we'll read about this man. So there was a man who went around selling small rat traps, and he went around, he sold rat traps, and those rat traps were made of wire. He made them himself, and those rat traps were prepared by him only at odd moments from the material he got by begging in the stores or in the big farms. And he used to go begging for the things and used to get wire, and using those wires he used to make rat traps. But even so, the business was not profitable. So he got the things without the money, means free of cost, and still he was not having so much money by selling them, and he did not get profit out of it. So he did selling of the rat traps, then he did beggary, and then he did small thefts, and thus he kept himself alive. Even so, his clothes were in rags, his cheeks were sunken, and hunger gleamed in his eyes. And his clothes were in rags. Rags means they were torn. They were not in proper condition. They were torn, and the cheeks were sunken. The people, the old people or the poor people, you must have seen, when they don't get food, they don't get proper nourishment, their cheeks becomes, it goes inside, and the eye showed the hunger, that the person is hungry, he doesn't have enough food to eat. So that kind of condition was his. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond. And he was all alone, and he lived a monotonous life, a lonely life he lived. And so he was very sad, who plodded along the road, left to his own meditation. And while he was moving on the road, taking the rat traps, carrying the rat traps, and thinking in his own self, but one day this man had fallen into a line of thought which really seemed to him entertaining. So one day a thought came to him, and that thought was very interesting. And you will listen to that thought, so you will find that this is very interesting thing. He had naturally been thinking of his rat traps when suddenly he was struck by the ideas. When he was thinking about the rat trap, then he got the idea that the whole world, the world in which we live, is a big trap for the human beings. And many kinds of temptations come in this, and the person is likely to fall in that trap, and then it gets either punishment or gets reward. So it is on the luck of the person. So he said the world is full of land, seas, cities and villages. So all these things are a very big trap. It had never existed for any other purpose than to set baits for people. And in this whole world, there are baits some kind of the other. The thing that is kept for the temptation of the people. As we keep bread, cheese for a bait, as a bait in the rat trap, so that the rat it gets attracted towards it, and when it goes inside it, it gets caught. So that bait, something or the other, is a bait in this earth. It offers riches and joys, and those bait, they offer us riches, joys, shelter, food, heat and clothing. Exactly as a rat trap offers cheese and pork, as soon as anyone let himself to be tempted to touch the bait, it closed on him. And just all these things are like bait, as cheese and pork is bait for the mouse or the rat, and as soon as it gets tempted and it goes and touches, it is closed on him. So in the same way, the human beings, they are also having caught in this bait. The world, of course, never been very kind to him. And you must have seen that when the peddler, they come selling things, when your parents, they don't want to buy those things, they just tell them to go away from there, and when they don't listen, then they shout at him. So the same condition was over here, and he said that always the people who are not kind to him, it gave him unwanted joy to think ill of it in this way, and he felt very much happy to think that these people, those who don't entertain him, those who don't buy a trap from him, they will one day fall in the trap, and then he will be very happy to see them falling in the trap. It became a cherished pastime of his during many dreary ploddings to think of people he knew who had let themselves be caught in dangerous snare, and of others who were still circling around the bait. And sometimes he used to think about the people who were already caught in the bait and they were finished, and some were there circling around the bait and they were about to be trapped. So one dark night, what happened, evening, he was walking along the road, and then he saw a little grey cottage that was along the roadside, and it was a lonely cottage that was there on the roadside. He went and he knocked at the door, and an old man, he opened the door and he called him inside, and he wanted the rat trap seller, he wanted a shelter in the night. And that fellow, the old man, he was very much happy to have him, because he did not have wife and children to talk to, and he was very happy that at least someone is there for him to talk to. So he prepared supper for him, he brought porridge, he gave him to eat, and after that he carved a tobacco roll, slice of tobacco roll, and gave it to him to smoke. And both of them, while smoking, they were playing the cards, and through those cards they played majorless. This was the game that they were playing, and till the bedtime they were playing. The old man was very generous with his confidence as with his porridge and tobacco. So the man was very confident, the old man was confident, he had confidently given him porridge to eat and tobacco roll to smoke, and he was very confident and generous person. The guest informed at once that in his days of prosperity, his host had been a crofter at Ramsjo's ironworks and had worked on the land. And so this rat trap seller is telling us that this old man, he told him that he worked as a crofter in Ramsjo ironworks when it was working, when he was quite young. Now, as he was no longer able to do day labor, it was his cow which supported him. So this fellow, he had become old, he could not work in the iron's work, so he bought a cow, and that cow supported him a lot, and she gave creamy milk. And in the last month he earned 30 roners. So the roners that the currency that was used over there, it was roners. So he said 30 roners he had collected out of selling the creamy milk to the people. The stranger must have seemed incredulous, for the old man got up and went to the window, took out a leather pouch which hung on the nail in the very window frame, and picked out 3 wrinkled 10-roner bills. And then this old man, he was very nice. He went to the window, he brought the iron leather bag from there, and he took out the wrinkled 10 roners, as we call 10 rupee notes, 3 10 rupees notes. So he take out 3 roners that were crushed. He took out and showed it to him, and he said that these are the money that he had earned, and it was like a trap. It was like a bait that was there in front of the rat trap seller. The next day both men got up in good season. So they went to sleep. Early morning they got up. They were very happy. The crofter was in hurry to milk the cow. The crofter, he was very busy. He went to milk the cow, and then the other thought that he should stay in bed when the head of the house had gotten up. So the rat trap seller, he thought that when the master is awake, I should also get up and help him and do the things and talk with him. They left the cottage the same time, and together they left the cottage. The old man, he locked the door, and they both went off. The rat trap seller went the other way, and the old man went the other way. The crofter locked the door and put the key in his pocket. The man with the rat trap said goodbye and thank you, and thereupon each went his own way. So I think you have understood this. But half an hour later, after moving from there, the rat trap seller, the peddler, he came back and he stood in front of the house of the old man. Then he did not try to go inside through the door, but he went to the window, he broke the pane, and he put his hand inside, took out the pouch and the 30 roners out of it. He took out the money, he kept the money in his pocket, and then again he hung the leather bag on the place from where he had taken it out, and then he went off. So this way he robbed his money. As he walked along with the money in his pocket, he felt quite pleased of his smartness, and when he kept the money in his hand, he was feeling very smart that he has smartly took out the money and he's carrying it. He realized, of course, that at first he dared not continue on the public highway, and keeping that money in his pocket, he did not want to walk on the road, and he thought that if the police happened to catch him, then they will search him and then they'll ask him from where he got so much money. So he said it's better to go inside the woods. So woods is the forest. So through forest he wanted to go to the other place. During the first hours this caused him no difficulty, and during the morning time he was fresh. So that time nothing happened, no problem occurred. Later in the day it became worse, and as the day went on, it was becoming worse for him. For it was a big and confusing forest which he had gotten into, and the day was becoming worse because the forest where he entered, it was very thick and it was very confusing for him. So he got lost in that. He tried to be sure to walk in a definite direction, but the paths twisted back and forth so strangely He walked and walked without coming to an end of the wood. Finally, he realized that he had only been walking around the same part of the forest, and he was quite sure that he'll go this way and he'll reach the other end. And so he kept on walking, and afterwards he came to know that the place where he is walking is the same place. Instead of going away from there, he is walking in the same place round and round. So now he was very much in pain. All at once he recalled his thoughts about the world and the rat trap. Then the world and the rat trap that came to his mind. Now his own turn had come. He was very much happy about the people, that the people have been caught in the bait and they are having problem. Now he himself was caught in a bait, and that condition was there. The whole forest with its trunk and branches, its thickets and fallen logs, closed him upon him like an impenetrable prison from which he could never escape. And the forest seemed to him like a thick prison, as a prison from where he could not escape. He could not move away because that forest was very thick. It had big trees with big trunks and branches, and the bushes and shrubs, everything was there, and it was very difficult for him to go out from that place. So it seemed to him like a prison from where he could not escape. And it was late in December time. It was December. Darkness was already descending over the forest. So December, in the cold season, night falls very fast. So the night was falling. This increased the danger and increased also his gloom and despair. And he knew that in the night, in that forest, the wild animals might come and then they will eat him up. So he was very much getting sad and he was painful. Finally he saw no way out and he sat down on the ground, tired out to death, thinking that this last moment had come. And then he was very much exhausted. He sat down on the ground, and now he knew that his end has come and any time he is going to die. But just as he laid his head on the ground, and when he lay down on the ground, he heard a sound. He heard some sound coming out, a hard, regular thumping. The thumping sound, at certain interval, the thumping sound was coming. There was no doubt as to what that was, and he knew that something was there. He raised himself. With great difficulty he stood up. Those are the hammer strokes from an iron mill, and the iron mill was nearby, and the hammer stroke was coming out at regular intervals. There must be people nearby, and he thought to himself that people might be there. So he summoned all his strength. So with all his strength he got up, staggered in the direction of the sound, and then he walked staggering, ladkhadate hue. He started walking towards the sound, from where the sound was coming. Ramshaw's ironworks, which are now closed down, were not so long. A large plant with smelter, rolling mills and forge. In the summertime, long lines of heavily loaded barges and scows slid down the canal, which led to the large inland lake, and in the winter time the roads near the mill were black with all the coal dust which shifted down from the big charcoal crates. And there he found the Ramsdor's ironworks. It was closed down. Previously, in the summertime, he could see the big loaded trucks were there, and the canals, the big pieces, big sheets were put in the canal, and then during winter time the road was covered with black coal because the charcoal crates were being burnt over there, and the smoke came and it made it black, so it became all dirty, dusty. So that area was there. So he reached over there. During one of the long dark evenings just before Christmas, the master smith and his helper sat in the dark forge near the furnace waiting for the pig iron, which had been put in the fire to be ready to put in the anvil. And when he went inside, he saw the master smith and his helper. Both were sitting near the furnace, and they had put pig iron in the furnace, and they were waiting for it to smelt, and then they would put it in anvil. Every now and then one of them got up to stir the glowing mass with long iron bar, returning in a few moments dripping with perspiration. And each one, turn by turn, they got up, they stirred the material that was inside with a big iron bar, and then he saw that both were dripping, both were sweating. The sweat was falling down. Though, as was the custom, he wore nothing but a long shirt and a pair of wooden shoes. And it was a customary work over there, and the customary dress was there, that he wore only the shirt and wooden shoes, and nothing else he was wearing. All the time there were many sounds to be heard in the forge. The big bellows groaned and burning charcoal cracked. So when the work is going on, the furnace, the pig iron was melting and the charcoal was burning. So some sort of noise was coming, crackling noise and something other. The boy shoveled charcoal into the mouth of the furnace with great deal of clatter. Outside roared the waterfall, and the sharp north wind whipped the rain against the brick tile roof. And the boy was putting the charcoal in the under the furnace with clattering sound, and outside the waterfall was there, the big sound was coming, it was raining, so the rain was falling on the brick tiled roof. It was probably on account of all this noise that the blacksmith did not notice that the man had opened the gate and entered the forge. And when he opened the door and got inside the forge, the blacksmith and his helper, he could not see them or hear the sound of the door being open, because the sound of the charcoal, then the waterfall and the raindrops that were falling on the roof, that was all there. So all these sounds, it hid the sound of opening the door and getting inside. So he stood close to the furnace, and he was wet, so he went and he stood near the furnace. Surely it was nothing usual for poor vagabonds without any better shelter for the night to be attracted to the forge by the glow of light which escaped through the sooty pans, and to come in a warm themselves in front of the fire. And it was a very nice place, because these peddlers, when they don't have any place to rest, at least he got something to rest over there and the fire to warm himself. The blacksmith glanced only casually and indifferently at the intruder, and when the blacksmith looked at him, he just looked at him casually and he did not say anything to him. He looked the way people of this type usually did, with long beard, dirty, ragged, and with a bunch of rat-traps dangling on his chest. And this fellow, he was wearing the torn clothes, rat-traps were hanging on his chest, and he was having long beard and a dirty looks. So this fellow was looked by the blacksmith in that particular way, the discarding way. He asked permission to stay, and the master blacksmith nodded a haughty consent without honoring him with a single word. And then the peddler asked him, can he have rest over there in the night? So he just gave him permission, and then he didn't say anything. The tramp did not say anything either. He did not come there to talk, but only to warm himself and sleep. And the rat-trap seller did not say anything to him, because he had come over there to take shelter in the night and to warm himself. In those days, Ramjo's iron mill was owned by a very prominent iron master, whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron to the market. And Ramjo's iron mill was the was owned by a big ironmaster, and his ambition was to give out good material, good iron to the people. He watched both night and day to see what the work was done as well as possible. And night and day, every time he used to come and see the work, whether it was going on properly or not. And at this very moment, he came into the forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. And when the rat trap seller reached over there, so it was time for the ironmaster to come for his inspection duty. So he had to come there. So after this, we'll read in the next class, because it is a very big lesson. So I think we'll divide the lesson only in 2 parts. This is part 1, and the part 2 we'll be doing in the next class. So I hope you have understood this, and if you're not able to understand, listen to the explanation once and twice, and then also if you're not able to understand, then I'll give you some of the points, some of the summaries. I'll try to make it out in a proper way so that you'll be able to read it and you'll be able to understand the lesson. And I think by giving you the notes on this, you'll be able to understand the lesson very clearly. So that's all for today, children. Good day and good luck.